Hey,
Hey everyone. How's it going, Pierson?
good. How you doing?
Good.
This is a big day.
Another crazy week in AI land.
Crazy week in AI land and crazy week for us. Episode 10. We're halfway to
Yeah,
20.
wow, double digits. We did it. What was the statistic? Like 80% like to episode 3 or something? And
It
then
was 90% of people, 90% of podcasters never get past episode 3, and only 1% ever reach episode 20. I don't have my sources on this. It could be completely false, but it was a cool stat that maybe it's US podcasts or I don't know.
and
So we're
90%
halfway
of
there.
work is showing up, as they say.
90% of
It's like
work
that
is showing up.
Mr. Beast, he has this like thing where people would come up to him like, hey, I need your help. How do I become, a successful YouTuber? And he goes, create 100 videos and then come to me. And say, he says like, most people won't do it, but the people who do it, by the time they hit 100 videos, they don't need my help. Like,
Right.
so
It's so
they're,
true. It's true with everything in life. It's so cool. I mean,
yeah,
it's like, hey, you do something the first time, you're gonna be ass at it, and the second time, you're still gonna be bad. A third time, probably still bad.
right.
And then you're like, but every time you get like slightly better, and then you eventually get to this point where you're like, wow, your current work is just so indistinguishable from the
Yep.
first version. That's what's so fun. That's what makes life fun. You know that meme? It's not a meme, but it's the SpaceX Falcon rocket boosters that goes from like the version 1 where it just like has all these pipes everywhere and it just looks like some garage like Iron Man like put it all together, and then V3 is super clean and it's smaller and it's more compact, it's more efficient, everything's better about it. And it's like you just can't get to V3 without doing V1 and V2. It's just impossible. You
Yeah.
can't do it.
Yeah.
So,
Get through those versions.
all
It's
right.
true.
So last week I was at an event. It's called AI Tinkerers. That's how we met. Or actually, we didn't meet to that, but we both went to those. And one of the presenters there was showcasing his workflow for taking podcast episodes and turning it into like blog posts, essentially. So it took an episode, pulled the transcript, created this high quality, well formatted blog post that would go up online. And it's just cool. It's like that's the type of stuff that is a force multiplier, especially
Mm,
in like the marketing space. Like they create a podcast, they just sit down and record it like we do, and then they have a blog that takes a transcript that creates a blog
right.
derived from the transcript, and yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. And how do they do, like, do they use an MCP, like Cloud Code workflow? Like, what's the
They just
sort
coded
of,
it. They built it. It was kind of they uploaded the video, and then the video got transcribed, and then that transcription was like went through this pipeline of formatting essentially into like a plain text blog, and that blog just got uploaded to their website. And we could do something the same. I think this is like kind of the plan here. It is the plan here to just we're creating cool SEO content. It's going on YouTube.
yeah, for sure. I mean, the art of repurposing is super, powerful. And I feel like you have some workflows that are very similar. Like this video, you'll take it, there's edit, there's clips, there's the transcription, there's the post about the buffer post and stuff, whatever, etc. So all these steps, and stuff. I know you've been thinking about those too. So yeah, it's totally it's like it's always important to build a system to do the thing versus just doing the thing. So
Yeah, and the hardest thing, I mean, you know this too. There's just so much to do all the time, and I was like, man, I'm doing thing A, and I need to do thing B and thing C, and then tomorrow, if you don't get to thing B and thing C, tomorrow there's thing A, thing B, thing C still, and you're like,
right.
because it's always a challenge, like multitasking. Like I'm a
Yeah.
complete believer that there's no such thing as multitasking. If you're multitasking, you're doing both things bad. I would like to be proven wrong. I haven't yet really. Uh,
No, for sure. As Ron Swanson says, don't half-ass two things, full-ass one thing.
right, right, totally. But yeah, so yeah, we'll see. This will be interesting. But this week, let's get down into it. We had some cool news. Last week we were talking. So last week we talked about Genie 3. We talked about the future of like Hollywood and filmmaking related to Genie 3. We talked a little bit about Claude Code and how that could be used as a general purpose agent. That was an interesting conversation. But this week, I think we wanted to talk a little bit more about the Photoshop killer, the nano-banana
Hmm.
model. Super interesting. I'll let you lead on that. But and then there's some other stuff that we'll get to. But you just want to start off with nano-banana and like what is it? That's a
Yeah,
weird
yeah, we
name.
can get into it. And uh, just before we start, I want to echo on Genie 3. Yeah, you shared Bilal's video with me, which was very interesting. I watched it, and a couple of things we haven't wanted to call out was that because we were focusing so much on the gaming and the experience engine, but there's some cool aspects about commercially where you can like simulate robot training. I think we did talk about that, but also like smart cities and stuff, like where you can
Mm-hmm.
like simulate like how traffic flows in a city, etc., or how certain like you could be even like crazy something crazy like weather patterns or something. And so that was a very interesting aspect I had not thought about, that you can use it for simulations, and use that as training data for X, which could be robot training or just planning the grid, etc. So
Totally.
very powerful.
No, it's super interesting. And for context, I mean, if you didn't listen to last episode, Genie 3 is Google's world model. And so what Genie 3 is essentially they took a lot of data, probably YouTube, Google Earth, satellite imagery, everything, and created a real time replication of the world. And so you could just generate based on an image or a video, an interactive world that you could walk through. And so everything is being generated in real time. And that was just super interesting. So you could just get put into a world, whether that's, a real world, a fake world, a piece of art, and actually interact with that image or whatever you just generated, like move around, like playing a video game.
Right. Yeah, or
So cool.
have if you want to experience. I've never been a huge Star Trek fan just because I just never experienced it. But there's this concept called the holodeck in there where, and I've seen scenes for that where, but people can go in a room and that becomes, into whatever like a 1800s tavern or whatever, and they can like, it feels very real. So you can like simulate that reality, and that's a very interesting concept too, where you can just simulate, night out at the bar would just be in your pajamas, but you can, simulate
Totally.
that. So it's very interesting. Doesn't bode well for us socializing, but I'm fine with that.
No, yeah,
IRL is overrated.
yeah, no, totally. It's so cool. We'll link this video in the show notes. It's 20 minutes and it just kind of goes through, I think it was 8 different use cases of
Yeah,
Genie.
yeah, crazy use cases. And he didn't mention this because it's been very recent, but this is so typical in tech. They come out with Genie 3 and literally within a week, some lab released an open source version, which was almost as good and for free open source.
Right.
So this space
Force the
is,
hand, force them to release it because you can't use Genie 3.
yeah, yeah. But it's crazy how those things always happen. It's like kind of like the 4 minute mile version where, one guy does it and then a bunch of people do it. Yeah, it's interesting. I think this reality, this tech is closer than we think it is, and it'll be very interesting to see how our the way we interact on the internet online just changes because of it. So
Totally,
yeah.
totally. Yeah, yeah, totally. But cool. If you want to listen more to
Yeah.
that, check out the last
Yeah.
episode.
Jumping back to image editing. So nano banana. So what is nano banana? So nano banana, and we actually don't know what nano banana is. We do know it's a Google's latest image editing model. They haven't released it. Hopefully they'll release it soon. But it's basically state of the art image editing, and it
Wait, so
actually
how do we know about it if it's not released and like we don't know?
because Logan Kilpatrick, like who's the lead PM, he's been like tweeting out banana emojis. So I think we're just like that's I
Wait, so
guess
nano
that's the
bananas out there, you could use it, but
Yeah,
there's
yeah. So what happens
unofficial.
is there's a it's like LM Arena. What these labs do is they'll put their model out with a code name. So it probably won't be called Nano Banana once it's out. There's other models like Horizon, etc., which we don't know about. Like I mentioned, I think last week that it's better than apparently Opus in front end, but we don't know
Hmm,
who who's
right.
that. So they put it out there as a way to test out the model, get feedback before they do a full release. And so Nano Banana has been like making the waves on LM Arena or other sites like that. So that's why we know about it.
And LM Arena is a website where you have like two models go head to head to each other? Like, what is LM Arena?
Yeah. Basically, you do an LO rating type thing where, you ask a question and it'll give you two models you don't know about. It's kind of like a blind audition, and you pick the answer. And based on that, they come up with this LO rating. It's actually a pretty genius system from a basic standpoint, which has been totally gamified. And I actually don't believe in LM Arena benchmarks at all at this point, because a lot of them don't make sense. But it was a great idea when it started, and, it took off, and it's become the de facto place to
And
go and
so
look at other models.
for an image editing model like nano-banana, so are you seeing, like, how does that work in
Yeah, I
just
mean,
head to head?
it might not be LM Arena, because I know LM Arena is primarily text editing, but it could be. I think they might have added it. I imagine what happens is you edit an image and you get two different outputs and you pick one or something like
Gotcha.
that.
Cool.
But yeah, it's supposedly it's the best at editing, and it actually follows in the wake of Quen Image, which is currently, and it has been released by Quen. It's also a really good image editing model. It's out there. It's on Foul Replicate, and it's open source, and so you can actually fine tune it as well, which is another interesting aspect of open source model I'll get into shortly. But Quen Image is really good, very minute. Edits can happen and maintains most of the image. And nano-banana apparently takes it to the next level. And really, with image editing, I think the real big North Star is just kind of eliminating Photoshop. Like, you just take an image and you can edit minute details, and it just gives you that perfectly. And I think we're fast reaching that point. Now, I don't think Photoshop is going away, because I think you need a GUI, and there's a ton of other stuff you have to do. But this will probably get baked into these editor workflow tools, where you just use these models. For me, what's exciting is character consistency. I've been like, kind of harping on this for a while, but I feel like one of the reasons we don't have coherent stories is because, you start with a character and the character changes because you generate 5-second videos, etc. With character consistency, what I've seen is, and our friend PJ, he had an awesome commercial he made it was a tax company. I forget. Oh yeah, sorry, but it was Ramp. He did a 30-second commercial, but the way his workflow works is super interesting. What he does is he starts with these shots. So he has the image and then the main character, but he's edited in different poses, etc. That's how you come up with your main shots. And then from your shots, you generate the videos and stuff. And then you kind of stitch them together. And I think we're going to see this new artistic workflow where you have these like shots generated first, and then from those shots using image to video, you're generating different videos and then stitching them together. So
Right.
very cool.
That's super interesting. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned a lot of topics. I mean, character consistency is something that we've talked about a lot here, how important it is for movies, for video games, for just like all this stuff. There's so many reasons why being able to have consistent characters is important. One of the things that, you mentioned, so nano-banana, so image editing in general, it's going to be really interesting because like I've always really enjoyed messing around with Photoshop, Illustrator. Like that was probably when I was much younger, like that was a pretty complicated, and still today is very complicated piece of software. And there are things that Photoshop does do well, which I will be interested to see how, like, what will the GUI be when the underlying software that powers image editing is no longer like Photoshop, like press buttons, do calculation stuff, but rather a model. Because one of the things that Photoshop does really well is you could layer, so you can kind
Right.
of and have like history and sort of like you have layers. And I wonder when you use an image editing model, you take an image, you apply some transformation, and then you get a new image. And so there isn't really necessarily a concept of layers where you can like, hey, I just like remove, like I added the text to this image. Like I asked my image editing model, hey, add text like to the billboard that's in the background. And then you were like, well, actually just edit that text, and you kind of want to like compare it back and forth
Yeah.
or remove it. And so like the layering will be something that,
Right. And
what
that's
will
why,
be the
I mean, that's a good
scaffolding?
call out, because in that example, like I would much rather, I think most people would rather just use a brush, select the element they want to edit, and not be like the top right corner of the billboard, the green. And because I've tried to do that, and because sometimes, it's ambiguous and you have to be really specific in your instruction. It's annoying to write that down. So I actually think that is not the experience most people want. I think what will happen is that right now people like have these layers, they select that layer, and then they have these 20 different options they can use, or maybe 200 for sure. So, but now you can just then prompt it like, oh, select the jacket layer. And then now you select it and now change that to green. I think so you'll probably have like a pop-up box or something. But the layer concept, I think, is so baked in and so powerful that I think that'll probably remain, because, it's much easier to select the shadow layer or the jacket layer rather than saying change the jacket. Or I mean, that's a very bad example, but like imagine like there's 50 people and you're like, oh, the people in the second to last row, like, no, and on second to the left. No, I'll just select
Right.
the person, right?
Right. Totally. No, it's really interesting because I wonder if there'll just be a model. Like, I wonder if lives at the model layer or at like the scaffolding software layer around the model, where could a model just, rather than generating an image, could the model generate the Photoshop file that has the layers?
Right.
And
Or the
so rather than being
SVG or
trained
whatever.
on,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Right.
SVG, because SVG is a great
Right.
example. For anybody, it's like a scalable vector graphic, I think, or simple,
Right.
scalable, I think it is.
Right.
But it's just a bunch of just lines, and it's a text file essentially that says, hey, from point A to point B, draw a line between these and have that line
Hmm.
be this thickness. And so
Right.
a text model can generate
Right.
SVGs pretty
That's
well.
true. That's true. And you use Photoshop. Photoshop is what, PLD or I mean, they have a special extension or something too, right?
Yeah, it's
For
like
their asset.
PSD. Right.
PSD or something. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
And
that's
yeah, and I think that was just like it doesn't have to actually be a Photoshop file, but just like could a model be trained to, rather than producing an image, be trained to produce like multiple layers of an image that then are collapsed when you view it, but then can also be extended like, hey, here's the baseline, here's the shadow that we applied, here's the text that we applied, here's like the ultimate like curves
right.
or
Right. Yeah,
lighting
for
and
sure. I
stuff.
mean, we already have models that do text to 3D, like they'll generate 3D, it's called GL models or something, where you can like rotate it and get the whole thing. So, I mean, I think that's a good call. Like you can like probably generate, you know, whatever,
Right.
asset you want, which is optimized for manipulation. And also like compression too. I mean, a lot of people just generate PNG and JPEG, but why not WebP or,
I try
the
to change
AWIFs
everything
or
to
whatever.
WebP. I'm like, everything nowadays, I'm like WebP, because it goes from like a 1 megabyte file down to a
Right.
20 kilobyte file. And
Yeah.
I was like,
No,
that's
I
50 times
I
shorter,
wish,
smaller.
I want to use WebP, but there's so many issues I've felt with a lot of things not supporting, like particularly with OG images and stuff. I've sometimes felt like maybe now it's better, but used to be it had to be a PNG, otherwise it wouldn't render. So a lot of people were annoyed at the WebP guy, even though I mean there was this funny meme of Vince McMahon, like somebody said, "Sir, we found the WebP guy," and he goes, "Where is he? Where's the son of a bitch?" And he just like runs out.
That's funny. Oh, that's funny.
But I mean, of course, you want more impression. And apparently, AWIF, which is even the latest and greatest, it's even better than WebP, but nobody supports AWIF at
Right.
this point. So at
Right.
least WebP has been around for a while.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. And one more thing I think would be really interesting before we move away from image editing. So we were talking about nano-banana and how the challenges with image editing with a prompt is the lack of lack of specifying your intent well enough to actually get the intended output, because you have to be like, hey, select row 2 of all those people in the audience. I wonder, like, I use Photoshop. They have some AI tools built in. They have this generative background, generative remove. And they're really good. They work and they integrate really easily into that UI. The other thing that we've always talked about is just tools, and an LLM is a great, it can call tools and perform actions. Like, I just wonder if Photoshop simplifies their UI into like a Photoshop AI. Like, instead of CS, they're on Creative Cloud now. It's like CS6 and Creative Cloud. Maybe the next thing is like Photoshop AI or something.
Hmm.
And rather than having all these buttons everywhere, like as the default, you just have a text prompt on the right hand side and say, hey, like, do this thing for me. And then it will actually hook into all the actions that Photoshop could normally do and just actually call those as tools. So rather than
Mm.
like, oh, like create a new layer for me, or uh, add text, or,
Yeah.
add
I mean,
some
that's
skin,
an interesting business idea. Somebody basically builds a wrapper
right?
on Photoshop and just
On
gives a
GIMP,
more like a Canva-like experience.
right?
And then you don't have to worry about the 50,000 different tools under the hood. So yeah,
I think you're seeing this all the time. Like, this is something where you
yeah,
have these co-pilots in so many applications
yeah,
now, where on the right-hand side, there's just going to be a text box. Like Riverside,
yeah.
that what we record on has that.
Yeah,
Just
we should do it. the one of my unsung heroes who doesn't know I exist. Nobody knows about this guy, but Photopea.
Oh, yes, I do know Photopea. Yeah.
So Photopea is like one of those like OG. It was created by one guy. One guy created it in like 2010 or whatever. I don't know. He makes some millions of dollars, I think, from it. It's a totally free tool. It's all based on, I think, advertising or donation or something. But it's ridiculous. He basically was like, "Oh, I want to create a Photoshop browser version free," and it's like crazy. It's like the simplest in terms of like no auth, nothing. Like obviously the application itself is super complicated, but it's just a free browser app. There's no gateway or anything, and he just keeps been at it for like a decade plus. So yeah, crazy, like an OG indie hacker. So definitely check out Photopea, and hopefully he adds some AI stuff like we were talking about. That would be great because I would love for Adobe to get killed because they are a shit company, but they have crazy, like their subscription plans are insane and they will not let you cancel. So there's a huge, issue with them that you'll have to call them to cancel and they have to pay a cancellation fee, which is stupid. Why would you have to pay a fee to cancel their subscription? Ridiculous. So that's why I'm like not a fan of Adobe, and I would love for Photopias and the Canvas and the Figmas of the world to eat their cake.
Right. 100%. No, totally. Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. This is when in tech, when you have new innovation and paradigm shifts, this is when companies die. We'll see what happens with them, see what happens with Apple.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of closing the loop on image editing. Another cool thing about image editing, I think, for open source models is very cool is that you can fine tune them on LoRa's, which is a way of fine tuning image models. And there's some really cool fine tunes. Particularly the Replicate team is very good at putting out fine tune models. They have a couple of dedicated members who do it. And one of my favorite ones on Quen Images, it's called Real Life Anime. And so if you've seen the movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit, it's an old classic movie where it's a bunch of Looney Tunes, but kind of like Space Jam, Looney Tunes, and but the main character is like, he's real, so it's like a real life movie, but then you got tunes. And it's like, I love that concept, and I wish we had more of, movies and shows built around that concept. There's very few shows. It kind of happened around the 90s. I remember it was Who Framed Roger Rabbit. There was a Arnold Schwarzenegger's like Toon movie, which is bizarre. He did that. I think it was Last Action Heroes, maybe, I think, or something. And then there's obviously Space Jam. So it was a fad for in the 90s, like late 80s, early 90s, and then it died. But this LoRa might bring it back. Now you can go, you can generate like a toon image, and everything else is like cinematic, real life. So that's just one example of fine-tuned models. And the advantage of fine-tuned models is you don't have to worry about getting the perfect prompt. You can models are getting good enough that you can do this with the right prompt, but fine-tunes just, bake that, call it like the aesthetic in, and then you just focus on generating the exact, like the character or the situation in the image and not worry about the art style.
So would you recommend somebody who's trying to generate some media spend the time first seeing if there's a fine-tuned version of something out there, or like playing around with, the latest image gen model or video gen model, and then finding what do you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, I think start trying out like with the base models and see if you like, but if consistency is key for you, especially if you want to change the exact style, and second, you don't want to type in the 1,000-word prompt over and over again, then fine tuning could be key. And the cool thing about fine tuning with platforms like Fall and Replicate is you don't need to be technical or anything. You don't need to download PyTorch or whatever and fine tune. You can literally just it's a GUI literally. You upload 20 images of the style you want, and you press run, and it used to cost hundreds of dollars. Now it costs like $1 or $2 or something because it's a simple LoRa. And within like, I think 10 to 15 minutes, or sometimes even less, maybe sometimes it's a couple of minutes, you can, fine tune it. So you can fine tune Quen for image edits. And if you want to do a style on image generation, I would check out Flux Dev, which is basically Black Forest Labs, which is the core team that creates Stable Diffusion, and they have some of the best state-of-the-art models. Flux Context, is good for editing as well. Flux Dev is probably the best, cheap text generation model, etc. So you can use them.
No, that's super interesting. I feel like to most people, yeah, it's super powerful, and it's still, even though it's so easy now, it's like, I don't even know, people don't even know where to start. And so I think just explain, like, hey, if you're interested in generating images, most people probably know of ChatGPT. like their image gen. You could do that there. My brother, which is funny, he was visiting recently, and he had the Cling app on his iPhone. I was like, whoa, that's cool. He was just making like hippos. He was like doing something with hippos. I was like, this is weird. Like hippos playing basketball or something. He's like, yeah, it's so fun. And then he's like, but I'm out of my credits. And they're like, oh, I have to subscribe to like this plan to get more credits. He's like, I don't want that. And
Yeah.
so it's definitely not as user friendly as an app, but for anyone out there that just is kind of interested to play around with it, like what could you do at the, this is probably the, going to FAL or Replicate is the cheapest you could get. I mean, besides,
Right.
buying your own GPU and like hosting your model, like you just go to FAL and you have the GUI, and then
Yeah.
you could just fine tune your
Oh yeah, I
image.
love those platforms. It's makes life so much easier for I like chickens just stand on the shoulders of those giants, and they've
Right,
optimized it. It's not trivial to host these models and run them optimally and get the right parameters set,
right.
etc. So something I think most people it doesn't make sense,
What
to go down that rabbit hole.
Totally. One of the things that I think might be interesting, because I'm curious too. So let's say you have a image model or video model or whatever, and you want to fine tune it. You found the right model. You're able to fine tune it. Those 20 images that you get, like, where do you get them? Like, how close do they have? Like, let's say I want to create style of like Pokemon, pixelated Pokemon. That kind of makes sense. I can go to Google and just get some pixelated Pokemons. Like, how close and similar do they have? Do they have to all be like the exact same, or how diverse should they be? What's works?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. It depends on what you're trying to generate. Like if you're trying to generate like let's say an anime style, Pokemon style, then it doesn't have to be Pikachu 20 shots. If anything, you probably want Ash in one, and you want to capture a more diverse style. But let's say you want to create a fine-tuned Pearson model, then you probably want portrait shots, that of you, and then but they can't just be the same photo of you. Maybe you want some photos where you're smiling, maybe some side shots and stuff. So you want a little bit of diversity. But if you add 4 images of the back of your head, that's probably going to mess up the Pearson portrait fine tune,
Mm,
right? So
right.
that's where it really comes down to like what are you trying to generate on. And it's very interesting because this itself is like the taste of selecting these images and fine tuning it is its own kind of skill set. Because I've actually seen people, what they do is they go, now images are models are so good, you can kind of just use prompts as well. But back in the day, people, when Stable Diffusion first came out, they would like fine tune it on like, you know, Pixar style, Disney anime, old anime style, modern Studio Ghibli style. And then they would basically make presets out of these, like a drop down option, and sell those apps, which under the hood would just hit one of those 20 models. And there were apps that were making thousands of dollars from this, just because most people don't want to use them. And now I would say for the most of these use cases, you're probably better off just making an optimized system prompt, like a prompt that can generate that style you want and using that. But that'll get you to 99%. Uh, but if you really want it to, get the exact style, then fine tuning probably is still worth it. And it's so easy, you can always try it. And it's also cheaper because once you fine tune that model, the other thing what people do is they will, sorry, I didn't mention this is actually a great hack is people would go to ChatGPT image or one of these higher models, generate the 20 images, then fine tune a Flux Dev Schnell, which costs 3 cents, right? And then you generate basically the same quality. So that's another arbitrage. If you're generating thousands of pics, you don't want to rely on ChatGPT, which takes a long time. So and it costs money, right? So that can decrease your cost and latency. So it's a great hack as well.
In that example, are you overfitting to those 20 examples? So would that just specifically be for a use case like, hey, I want to generate like just a bowl of fruits. Here I go to ChatGPT, like generate a strawberry, generate an orange, generate a banana, generate an apple, and then you fine tune kind of on those, and then now you can kind of generate different versions of the strawberries and bananas.
Right. Yeah.
And it wouldn't be like great for, you can't like do that and then expect to, hey, generate a super high quality version of a car or something, right?
Right.
So
I
it'd
mean,
kind
I
of
think
be
it's more style. From what I've seen on Civit AI and other sites, people will fine tune based on like the aesthetic, like Arcane style. Like Arcane is a show that has certain animation. Midjourney is very popular because Midjourney just has this really cool aesthetic. You can generate characters that look amazing. So you can imagine like, they can generate like images which look like 70s grain, vintage, that has like the freckles and stuff, and then get that vibe. So it's not necessarily generating a fruit bowl. It's more the style. Having said that, I have the other popular use case is like if you want an Instagram model, which is like you want the same type of, let's say, redhead. So that's a great way where you can like generate mid-journey images of that model and then fine tune, a smaller model to generate big pictures of her or him.
Right, right. It's super interesting. Yeah, there's still so much here where we're just figuring it out,
Yeah, yeah,
and
for
figuring out
sure.
like what's the best way to do it, how to make money with it, how to have fun with it.
Yeah, I
Really
mean, I
cool.
think it's just a fun hack right now. I think in the long term, and I've seen this particularly in the last year, the gap between just having one model that just generates whatever you like at a cheap enough rate that it doesn't matter versus fine tuning it. It used to be you need to fine tune. Now it's more like for the 1% cases you can fine tune, and if you just play it out for the next 6 to 12 months and more, you're probably going to get to 0.001%. Maybe if you're Coca-Cola and you want the exact Coca-Cola bottle, you're going to find your model. But for most of us, it's like nano to micro to whatever. Pico banana is just going to be so good
Hmm.
that it doesn't matter.
Right.
So yeah.
So do you see that there's any use case then, like let's say in 5 years, do you think that there will be any use case for fine tuning? Like in a movie, like, so character consistency maybe, where maybe the freckle has to be in the exact right spot on the face always. And that's just going to be impossible to define in a prompt.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, I don't know. I mean, I find it like the only thing I can think of is like if you just don't want the prompt. Like you don't want to put in a prompt and stuff, and you just want to like have it baked in. So maybe and cost, because it'll always be cheaper to have a fine-tuned smaller model with that aesthetic. But at the same time, if the cost is like 3 cents versus, well, yeah, like 0.03 cents versus 0.003 cents, do you care?
hmm
So it's interesting. For me personally, I probably will. I have used those fine-tuned models a lot less now versus what I used to. I used to use them a lot more last year.
right. No, it's interesting. It just gave me this idea too so combining fine tuning a model and then image editing and video gen. It's like when we're talking about video gen, we have video models that could do things pretty well throughout. Like, hey, give them like, hey, just generate some video. And if you take an image model, you generate an image, and then you generate like the first frame. Let's say like this 24 frames per second. Generate the first frame of that like snapshot. Then you generate the second frame, which is just pretty much you take the first frame, you image edit it, and then you let the image model or the video model fill in the blanks. So you can have like
Mm,
so much control where you could essentially just have it like you have complete creative control rather than letting the AI video model do everything. It's like, hey, here's the first frame, here's the second frame, and you use the image editing model to kind of be like move the head from the left to right, so it goes from like here to
mm.
like here with
Yeah,
that
it's
nice
like old
image
school
editing.
animation where they would
Yeah,
draw a picture and then move the character a bit, like, and you draw a little more and you superimpose stuff on it. So
right,
that's
right.
pretty interesting. Yeah. I have thought about like, it's annoying to me that image editing has gone so cheap, but video, it's now getting cheap. But I've thought about like, why can't we just generate 60? If we can generate 60 images, that's at a 60 frame per second or 24 images, why 24 times 5? So that's 120. So if you can generate 120 images for like 5 cents, why does a video of 5 seconds cost 25 cents? From at least my naive understanding, it's more to that because there's stuff like interpolation that is not captured in just having the frames, and you kind of need to kind of do it more end to end. I think there's a lot of powerful use cases like generating consistent characters or certain, art style. So I'm very interested in playing around with it. Hopefully this weekend. She kind of did a little bit on Quen Image, and Quen Image is also pretty good. So if you don't want to wait for nano-banana, definitely check out Quen Image. It's pretty cheap as
Also on
well.
fall.
It's all
Also
on fall.
all on fall.
And you
Nice.
can try fine tune. It's called Quen Image Train. If you ever want to fine tune or anything, look for something called Image Trainer. They usually have that. And also check out Flux. It's a little dated now, but in AI land. But Flux Dev and Flux had an update, Flux.1 now. So good. And actually, I left it for a while because I was just generating one-off images on GPT Image One on ChatGPT, and I went back and I realized that what I was missing was that I would generate an image on ChatGPT and it takes like sometimes 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and it just completely disrupted my flow. On Fall Dev, I literally, I generate an image. It literally takes like a second or 2 seconds, and then I can just something about the instant feedback makes
Totally.
me just iterate on that prompt so much. I'm like, oh wait, no, add a little bag here. Oh, remove that, and I can just I have no qualms in generating 30, 50, 60, 100 images of the same thing because it costs next to nothing.
Right.
So there's something about getting that latency down. I think that's very crucial for the creative process.
I mean, this goes full circle to what we started off the conversation with, iteration speed. I mean, V1, VN. I mean, the key to improvement is just faster iteration speeds. And because everything, like whether that's image generating, building a company, building a product, rocket boosters, it's just, if
Yeah,
you can decrease that, it's everyone's happier and your
I
product's gonna be
know. I
better.
mean, it would be awesome. I mean, we basically Flux Dev is so good, but like having Midjourney quality of that will be so cool too. It's kind of frustrating to me that Midjourney has had this amazing aesthetic that somehow we've not been able to quite replicate for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know what the secrets are. I mean, it's probably a lot of copyright data. Maybe that's yeah, I don't know.
I wonder what
Like,
happened. Do you know what happened with the copyright suits? Is it still in with Midjourney?
bro,
I
I
haven't
have no
followed.
idea. I think they're
Yeah,
still ongoing and stuff, or maybe they settled with them,
yeah,
but they're moving forward. They have a video model as well now, which
right.
coupled with a. I follow some artists on Twitter, and they have amazing like generate amazing Midjourney images and then animate them. Like I can see these guys like creating amazing storylines. They'll like have an art style, and then from there they'll generate like different characters and storylines. And I start like relating to the character because I've seen that art storyline pops on my feed all the time, and I'm like, oh
Right.
wow, he's having a coffee now. Oh wow, he's with his girlfriend. Like it's like suddenly I'm on a journey with this character, and
Totally.
so this is going to be super powerful. How you can create these stories and this style, that people
For
can
sure.
relate to.
It was super interesting. Yeah, it's a wild world. I mean, and I know that like 11 Labs had their music API. We talked about that a little bit. 11 Labs music other time, and now it's available via API, right?
Yep.
So
Yeah,
you can
same.
use
The
that in your product.
text-to-speech V3
Text to
API
speech
is also
V3.
available, which is great for developers. If you want to build something now, you can take 11 Labs text-to-speech V3, which is their best speech model. Take that, generate amazing dialogue, and you can add speech tags like laugh or giggle or whisper to make it super realistic. Then you take the text-to-music API, have a nice overlay jazz background, whatever, like jazz music background or whatever, and you can then take the sound effects and add sound effects AP, as well. And so, like, it's basically, end to end, like you can create a super realistic, storyline
Totally.
scene using all the tools.
Yeah. No,
It's
it's
super
just
powerful
wild.
combining them all together. I think just there's some alpha still, I think, in combining these disparate tools, like people do is VO3. VO3, one of the reasons VO3 is so viral is because it has video, it has a sound, it has dialogue, right? It combines it for the new person, but it's still expensive. And you can kind of get there if you just stitch together these tools, but it just takes some work. But that's the alpha, right?
Right.
Right now,
Totally.
there's only a certain number of people can stitch those tools together.
Right. And there'll always be some alpha here. I think there was an
Yeah,
interview I listened to the other day with Greg Brockman. He was just like the president of OpenAI. And he was just saying how when he started computing, he's like, man, I'm too late. The internet already happened. There's
right.
going to be nothing else for me to build. It's like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's just a funny, it's always like that way. It's never going to be too late. So if you're listening to this, you're like, man, VO3 came out and everyone's going to be able to do all these no, there's always going to be alpha. There's going to be it would be more or less depending for sure, but there'll always be another wave, another opportunities, new things, especially a space that
It's
moves
all
so
about the
quickly.
mindset. Some people just have that mindset. Peer levels put out, peer levels, just in case no one knows, he's like this OG indie hacker, makes millions of dollars on his like solo dev businesses like photo AI. He has I think his superpower is just like, it's not even like some unique insight. It's just looking at it from a sales angle, like, oh wow, I can make a product out of this and I can sell it. And his most recent thing he was looking into was what we were talking about. He's like, oh, I literally went to my friends and was like, hey, you have a shop, you have a product. I can create this avatar and you can like edit the video and add your own like thing and the avatar can sell it. And then you can put it on TikTok or whatever, UGC. Again, something if you've been in this world, people have been doing for months. But like, he just, you know, the way he phrased it, the way he was like putting it out, like talking to users and like, oh, and everyone was like, yeah, I would love to have that. Because most people don't live on the internet. It's just us folks. And they don't know you can do that. And, you know, if you can package it up into a nice, you know, awesome product that makes it clear what the value add is, and then go find these users, you can make a business out of it. And you probably will. I think you'll make bank on this.
Absolutely. And we're not saying it's easy, but we're not saying it's going to be as hard as. It's not scary. I mean, it will be hard. And I think he makes it seem easy, but it's not hard. It's like the difficulty comes from the ambiguity and doing, like, actually doing things. I think so many difficulties in running a business is like the unknown unknowns that you don't know even like you should be doing. You don't even know how to approach because you're not even thinking of them. It's like you don't know what you don't know. And the only way to minimize that is like just trying, and you'll try the first time and you'll fail and you'll realize, oh, you know, in hindsight, I should have done this differently. And the next time I'm going to try that and fail. And so Peter Levels, I mean, he had a lot of products before, like now where he is to get him to this point where he is. He's also, you know, he's non-traditionally trained engineer, but like he does some stuff like what you're talking about, putting like the Rode lip gloss on the UGC creators. Like he has he has skill to do that. Like if you asked me to, hey, could you do this right now? It would take me a long time to do. I wouldn't know. And I wouldn't be able to get to the level of quality that he does at all. Like he's been doing this stuff for so long, but just taking his mentality and being like, you can do whatever you want to do. And it's not going to be as straightforward or necessarily easy, but it's not going to be impossible. And you should try it and iterate and push through the hard.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about just like going through those reps and developing taste. It comes back to what we're saying. Taste is just so important. And he's developed basically a taste for what people like. And that is like such a superpower. And it's probably going to be one of the last few superpowers us humans will, value as everything else gets automated. So, develop that taste, go out, talk to users, put your stuff out there, develop a feel for what works and what doesn't.
Right. Yeah, the beauty. Bring back beauty. I love. Yeah. So, but I mean, on that note, I think we covered nano-banana. We covered 11 Labs music. We covered about image editing.
This was an image editing. We should like have a theme for every episode. This was the image editing episode, I guess. Right? Last time was the world Genie real-time player world episode.
It's hard sometimes to do a themed episode.
Yeah, because we do cover a bunch of things.
Right. But yeah, image editing episode. So hopefully this is helpful for people who don't know how to get started, but on image editing, or maybe we had some tips in there to do better. So
please do leave comments and stuff about, how, if you have any ideas, yes, if you were listening to us about how you would use image editing or any of the other things we mentioned, because we love reading those and using, and we'll like talk about those, if it makes sense, in the next episode.
Right. Yeah. Well, on that note, episode 10 wrapped up. Creative Flux.
10 episodes. Wow.
10 episodes. Follow us on Spotify, podcasts, YouTube, anywhere you get your podcasts, and we'll see you next week.
Cheers.
Cool.
Bye, guys.
Bye.